Now I'm going to turn on, hold on with me a second, gang. I want to turn on a particular piece in here. Oh, and by the way, I am recording this, so you probably got a notification about that it was being recorded. If not, just know that I am recording it in order for us to be able to uh, go back and refer to it again later. Okay. I can't find that little cursor I'm looking for. It's up here. So I have too many windows up here at the top, y'all. You probably have the same experience, don't you? All right. I'm not going to worry about it today. I don't want to waste our time. All right. So let's look at this. Now, I've still got my Photoshop set up in a way for you to be able to see the layers better. So you notice I've pulled my layers out. Remember, we talked about that you can readjust where all these tools are simply by going up here to the top and clicking on Windows, and a big area is going to open up down here with lots of fun stuff in it. And one of the areas is called a workspace, the area where you're working, where the tools are situated and this kind of thing. That's called a workspace. All right. And you probably see on here, there's essentials, there's motion, there's painting. I mean, there's all kinds of workspaces, and you can actually create your own workspaces. So you can set the screen up to work the way that you want it to work. Like maybe you want your tools on the left-hand side, or maybe you want them on the right-hand side. I don't know. But you can go in there and turn all that on and change it around and things like that. So for instance, I'm going to go up here and I'm going to choose Reset Essentials, and watch what happens to layers over there. And so I'm going to Reset Essentials, and look what just happened. It put layers back where it was originally. Okay. So it's really, really easy to go in there and reset your workspace. Now I'm going to pull these layers out again because I want them to be very, very visible to you. And I'm going to lay my cursor on the bottom and kind of stretch it out a little bit, because we're going to build a couple of pretty big images here, just to see what we can do with this. Okay. So I've got my layers open over here. I hope you can see them okay. If you can't, be sure and let me know, and I can possibly here. In fact, let me see if I can just blow the screen. No, that's going to do that. I don't want to do that. Okay, so we're not going to be able to, I can't maneuver Photoshop that like I can other programs. Anyway, all right, so we've got Photoshop open over here. We've got an image open over here. Remember, to open an image, we simply go up here to File and we choose Open. Or there's a shortcut, Command 0, or Command O, I should say, for open. And it'll take you to the last folder you were working in. Okay, so remember that Photoshop has a really good memory, unlike me. Okay, it remembers the last place you worked. So if I went to open right now, it would jump out to my Photoshop class folder that I've got on my desktop, and then we could open images from there. So just know that, and that's a good thing and a bad thing too. And I'll explain more about that in just a minute too. But just know that Photoshop remembers the last thing you did. And when you choose a tool or choose a folder or something like that, it's going to go to the last settings you used for that particular image. Okay, so just be aware of that. Excuse me. So I got a picture here of a boat, and the sky's pretty much blown out. They're taking it full at midday, when the sun is really, really bright, and when it's bright, it just blows out the sky. You've seen that before, right? And we talked the other day about doing sky replacement. Remember, we went up here to select, and when we did select, we came down to where it says sky. All right. And we could choose sky. And what it does is it's going to go in there and it's going to select the sky. Now, it may take a minute or two longer on this one, simply because there's a lot of little bitty things sticking out from this boat. And I can see by looking at this, it's done a pretty good job. Although right in here, you see it's gone over into the boat, which we really don't want that to happen. But for the most part, it's done a pretty good job. And then from this point, we could drag a sky in. We did that the other day, right? And we replace skies and things like that. So we could go in there and do that. But one of the things, I'm going to do a Command D, shortcut for the day. Command D is deselect. So anytime you have a selection going on, you can just simply go in there, hold the command or control key down, and hit the letter D, and that's going to deselect the selection. So that makes it really nice to be able to go in there and experiment with selections and then simply take the selection away. Okay. All right. So let's look at a couple things here. I'm going to go up here to the top left-hand corner where it says image. Okay. Now, when I go to the image button up here at the top left, I'm going to come down to where it says adjustments. All right. And so adjustments, I've got all these different adjustments that I can do to this picture. Okay. Like I can make it black and white. I can change the levels. I can drop the curves, just do all kinds of fun things to this image. Now, if I made an adjustment right now to this image, because there's only one layer over here, the original layer, it's going to make the adjustment to that layer. And I like to work non-destructively in that I don't like to change my original in most cases. There are times when I'll do that, but for the most part, I like to work on a copy of the original. So I'm going to go over here and click on the layer palette. And I'm going to click on the background layer. Remember the shortcut we learned last week, and it's Command or Control and the letter J for jump. Okay, so I jumped a copy of the background up to a new layer up there. Okay, so Command or Control J, and it's going to create a copy. Okay, and so remember too that when it creates layers, it always names them layer 1, layer 2, layer 3. It's not real descriptive, but we can change that. Remember, we can go right here and just double click on the word layer 1, and we'll call this BG copy. Okay, background copy, just hit enter. And now we've named that layer, and it's really, really easy to get to that to make changes. All right. Now, so we've made a copy of the background layer. Now let's play with this a little bit. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to click on image. And I'm going to click on adjustments. And I notice I've got a few exposure controls, if you will. So notice they're in sections. I've got these 4 right here, and then I've got 5 or 6 down here, and then I've got a line, and then I've got some down here. Okay. So this top section up here, this is all about exposure, if you will, brightness and contrast and this kind of thing. Okay. And then the next section is going to affect the coloration of the image. Like maybe you're going to change it to black and white, or maybe you want to increase the reds and decrease the greens. I don't know. All kind of fun things you can do there. Okay. And then these are more like special effects that we can apply to the image right there. And then if we come down here, we're not going to touch on shadows and highlights is a real good area to work with. In fact, I think we're going to go to that next. And we can do HDR toning. If you don't know about HDR toning, you may want to go out and just do a YouTube search. And it's a really neat technique. And then we've got some other things down here where we can replace certain colors. Like we could go in and choose, say, the red on the boat right here and say, okay, we want that red to be green or something like that. Okay. That's really, really helpful. For me, when I do a portrait session of a family, and let's say all the family is in matching shirts or jeans or something like that. But then there's always that one person, that instead of wearing earth tones, they wore fluorescent orange or something like that, right? And which would make the picture look awful. So what I'll do in there a lot of times is I'll go in here and I'll choose replace color, and I'll select that particular shirt and I'll change the shirt to match the family. Okay. And it just makes things a lot nicer. So anyway, let's go up here let's go down here. Let's try the shadow and highlight. Let's see what happens, because the sky's real blown out. Let's see if there's any data there at all. So I'm going to click on shadow and highlight. When I do, this window is going to open up here, and you're going to see that I've got a lot of controls here that I can adjust these shadows and highlights. Notice this top section is all about the shadows. This middle section right here is all about the highlights, okay? And the highlights are the one where we're really messed up here. You know, the highlights are the bright areas of the picture. It's just all blown out. So if I go down here and I drag this highlight slider, if there's any data in there, it might come back. But as you can see, when we pull this back, there is virtually no data there. You can see the highlights in the boat are changing. Notice, look right here in the little place where they drive. Okay. And if I pull this highlight way to the right, notice it's pulling out, you know, those highlights right there. If I push it back, they're coming back. So I can adjust the highlights a little bit there. But I'm sorry, yeah. But there's not any data in the sky. It's just completely blown out. So this is one of those cases where we would have to replace the sky entirely to make this image where it's usable. Okay. So I wanted you to see these adjustments right here where we can try to adjust different areas. Now we're going to come back and do a whole lot more. I'm going to hit cancel right now. Okay. So that took all that away and brought all those bright highlights back. Now, notice right here, y'all, is that here, I want to go back and do something real quick. Hold on. Let's do, because I want to demonstrate something to you. Let's just go brightness contrast, and I'll go brightness contrast, and I'm going to drop the brightness way down. Okay. And I'll click OK. All right. Now notice what happened here. I made the adjustment to this image, and you're going to notice that there's no way for me to go back and readjust that image, which could be detrimental to the picture because y'all, if I go in here now and I see that I've really dropped the darkness way too much, there's not a button that says reverse or change it or mask it out. Now I could put a mask here, couldn't I? You know, and paint it back in, but that's gonna be a lot of trouble. So I got a little bit of a problem here in that I can't redo the adjustment if I want to. All right. So I'm going to do a Command or Control Z, which means undo, right? Command Control Z. That works on just about every piece of software out there. And so I undid that. Now I want to show you something else we could do. There's a thing in Photoshop called smart filters. Okay. And I don't know if that's opposed to dumb filters. I don't know. But I know there is a smart filter. So here's what I can do. I can go on this layer right here and I can right click in that gray area over there. All right. And when I do, there's a lot of adjustments in here. Okay. But one of the adjustments says convert to smart object. Okay. Now you'll see this referred to as smart filters and smart objects. Just know that it's right there on a right click. Okay. So if I right click and I choose convert to smart object, what's going to happen here? I'm going to click and it looks like nothing really happened, right? I mean, it just kind of blinked and that was the end of it, right? But if you look in the bottom right-hand corner here of this particular, the background copy we did, right? If you look in that bottom right-hand corner, you see that there's a little icon there, if you will, okay? It's like two sheets of paper stacked on top of each other, okay? So that little icon right there tells you that it's a smart object, as well as you can hover over it. And if you can see behind the cursor there, it says smart object. Okay, so it lets you know there's a smart object there. All right, now you say, well, Steve, what can I do with a smart object? Well, I'm glad you asked. So now remember a minute ago, we went over here and we went to image and we went to adjustment and we went to bright. Well, first we went to shadows and highlights, right? But I'm just going to go up here to brightness and contrast right now. Okay. So if I go right here right now and I click this and I make an adjustment to this. So let's say we pull the brightness and brightness way down like we did a minute ago. It made the boat really dark, right? And if I click OK, what's going to happen here? Notice now that it put a mask right there, okay? And it indented that mask and it says smart filters. You see that right there? Now, remember a minute ago when we made remember a minute ago when we made that adjustment, there was no way to correct it, right? I mean, we made the adjustment, it was a one hit thing, and there was no way to go in there and adjust it without doing a bunch of other stuff to it. Okay, so right now what we've got here is, notice below this mask, there is that word brightness and contrast. That's the thing. That's that adjustment we went up here to, wasn't it? We went to image adjustments and we went to brightness and contrast, didn't it? Yeah, we did. So look at here. If I look at this and I go, I really made that too dark. Okay. I could go up here and I can click on those two little words, brightness and contrast, and watch what's going to happen. The window opens back up and I can make another adjustment to that. Do you see that? I'm not stuck with that one adjustment. So converting a layer to a smart object is just a smart thing to do, right? Okay. Because what that allows us to do is go, let's make it way too bright. Okay. And we'll click OK. Now look, we've got a smart filter here and it's a brightness and contrast. But look at the picture now. It's all messed up. So if I double click again on those words, look, there's that same window where it ended, and I can pull it back and I can adjust it and make it look the way I want it to look. Now, that's just cool right there, y'all. I mean, to be able to apply a filter and then change my mind. People tell me that's why my mind is so clean, because I'm always changing it. That's a joke. Okay. All right. So if I go in here now, I can readjust and do things like I want to. Okay. Now that's really, really helpful. All right. Now, and I'll say okay to that. So, and then I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, well, Steve, what if I want to do a second filter? Glad you asked. Okay. So if I go in here and I click on, I've got the smart layer, layer chosen. I can go over here. I can go to image, adjustments, and let's go to hue and saturation. Why not? Okay. We'll go to hue and saturation. Look over here, y'all. It just created another hue and saturation adjustment. It's right there for us. We can make changes anytime we want to. Now, what's this? If I go right here now, notice this word master right there, okay? If I go right here and I pull the saturation slider down, look at this. It takes all the saturation out of the entire image, okay? So if I pull it back, I can put a whole bunch of saturation in there, okay? And I can just adjust the saturation to get it where I would like it to be, all right? Now, oh, and by the way, if you pull a slider way to one direction, you go, nah, it's not exactly what I want. Instead of grabbing the little diamond there and trying to get it centered back on zero, just double click the diamond and it's going to go back to zero automatically. Just a little pro tip. All right. So watch this. If I go up here where the word master is, I'm going to drop this down. Look at this. It has broken down all the different colors that are in this particular adjustment. All right. So there is some red on that boat. And what if I wanted that red to really jump out more? Okay. Well, let's choose red and let's increase the saturation of the red. Look what happens. Now it's gonna increase the saturation to all the red in the image, but we could fix that with the layer mask. Okay. But I just wanted you to see that we can actually centralize, we can select just colors just by simply choosing this area up here, okay? Now we could drop the saturation. I mean, we could drop the brightness or the highlights on that particular color if we want to, okay? So it allows us to make changes by dropping this little window down right here to different colors that are within the image. Now, like I said, if we noticed that if we go in here and we increase the saturation, it not only increases the saturation in that red that was on the side of the boat right here, but it increases all the red throughout the whole image. It's a good way to tell where all the reds are. And sometimes we don't realize how much red or blue or green, whatever there is in an image. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and set that back by double clicking on the little arrow right there. I'm going to leave it just like it is, and I'm going to choose OK. And notice what it did, y'all. So it is stacking all of these particular images here, which is amazing. It makes it so nice. Let's do something. If I go to brightness and contrast right here, whoops, I'm on the wrong layer. Okay, there it is. Okay, here's brightness and contrast. And I'm going to pull the brightness way down. All right. I got a reason for this. Okay. Hang in there. I know it looks terrible. It's okay. And I'm going to choose okay. Now, notice I've got the brightness and contrast. It's there just like it was before. And if I want to readjust it, I just double click it, right? But watch this. I've got this mask right here. Okay. And remember, we talked about last week that what a mask does, it allows us to paint over the adjustment and bring back what was there before we made the adjustment. Okay. Let's take a look at this. So if I go over here to the toolbar on the far left-hand side, right? And if I choose the brush right there, okay, get the brush. If I hover over it, little window pops out and play a little movie, show you how to use the brush and things like that. So I'm going to click on the brush. Now, the the layer mask is white, correct? Okay. So the opposite of white is black in this case. Okay. So we're going to make sure the black square down here is right on top. Okay. Now, if I paint with black on that white mask, it's going to cut a hole through the mask or cut a hole through or maybe we can call it, it's going to erase the adjustment we made. So maybe we don't want the side of the boat dark, but maybe we wanted this ground to be a little bit darker. Okay. So look here. I've got my brush here, right? And I'm just going to go right here and I'm going to start painting on the side of that. And what it's, remember, we darkened, right? And so if I go in here now and I just paint along the edge of the boat right here, okay, I'm keeping the adjustment everywhere else except for right here on the side of the boat where I'm adjusting it, where I'm taking out and bringing back, okay? Now look at the mask now, y'all. The mask now, you see those black lines on there. It shows us where we cut through that adjustment to see what was underneath. And what's underneath this one? It's the original image right there, isn't it? Yeah. So now we've got all this is still dark, okay? But we brought this back, okay? Now that's pretty cool right there, okay? Now, let's undo what we just did, okay? So I'm just going to do a Command or Control Z and take that away because I want to show you something else. Remember we talked about, I think it was in the first class, that every single tool that you select over here on the left-hand side or the right-hand side has properties related to it. And those properties were right across the top here, right? Okay. So if I click another tool, notice that line changes. Okay. So I click another tool, that property bar changes. But right now we're looking at the brush, right? Okay. Notice that on this brush, there's a few different adjustments. There's a few different things I can choose. For instance, right here where this little fuzzy dot is, okay? If I drop that down, it shows me lots of kinds of brushes that I can paint with, okay? So I'm not just limited to a round brush, okay? I can choose any of these brushes on here and I can paint with them, okay? And we'll look at some of those things a little bit later in another lesson. But for today, I want you to know that those were there. But here's what I want you to notice. I'm going to keep that soft round brush, okay? Here's what I'm going to do, y'all. I'm going to go over here. Notice where it says flow, and flow's at 100 and opacity is 100. Now, opacity is how see-through the brush strokes are going to be. Okay, let me demonstrate that. So right now, if I go in here and I paint with this, okay, it's pretty see-through. Okay, let me undo that. Let's go up here now and let's drop the opacity back to say 30, 29, 30%. Okay. Watch what happens now. Do you see how it's not quite as see-through? Okay. In fact, if I make multiple passes, it's like taking a paintbrush and dipping it in paint, painting some, dipping it in paint some more, and painting some. Okay. So I'm creating layers of adjustment there. So I can actually go in here like this and keep painting and painting and painting, and the opacity will keep building up and building up and building up. Okay, let's undo that. Control Z. Now I have to do several Control Z's here because, oops, went too far. Okay, let's bring it back one. We're going to go to Edit, and we're going to do Redo Filter Effects. I'll go there. There it is. All right, so we've not, if we didn't want to use opacity, we could go back here and bring it back up to 100. Maybe we wanted the flow to change. In other words, like when we paint, maybe we add just a little bit of paint to our paintbrush, like if we're painting a fence or a car or something like that. Okay, don't go paint your car. But if we go out there and we drop the flow down of the spray can we're using, okay, it's going to apply a little less paint, and it takes more strokes to do that. Now, what that does, if I drop the flow down, let's drop it way down, okay? If I drop that flow down to say 28 or so, 20, the number's irrelevant. I just pulled it down, right? But if I go down here now and I make one pass over this, notice it lightened it up a little bit. And notice the layer mask over there on the right. It made just one light little black area. But every time I make a pass, it applies another 29%, okay, to it. So if I just keep painting over it over and over and over again, it's going to paint until it gets me up to 100%. You say, well, Steve, why in the world would you want to do that? Well, the reason I do that, y'all, is it gives me more control, okay? Because not always can I judge exactly how much of this color I need to get that particular look to come out on the boat. So if I wanted this area right here, watch this. See it gradually coming up, okay? Until I get it to where I want it. Maybe I just want a little bit up there, okay? All right. So I'm able to adjust how much. Maybe I want a lot on this area right here. Okay. So notice I just keep painting over it. And the more I paint over it, the more it comes up and gets brighter and brighter and brighter. Okay. Now that's just a really, really good use of this adjustment layer over here. And the thing I want you to note, y'all, is that unlike going up here to image and adjustments and doing a one-shot deal, over here, we created a smart object. And in creating that smart object, we're able to go back. We're given so much more control, right? Okay. We can go in there and make all kinds of changes and redo and change and this kind of thing. Now, notice there's an eyeball right here next to this layer. That's our smart adjustment layer, right? I mean, there's our smart adjustment icon. If I turn that eyeball off, it takes me right back to where I started. Okay. So I can see a before and an after to see if what I'm doing is really making any sense. Okay. So I can go in here and redo and that kind of thing just to make the picture look, to see what I'm doing, to see if it's working properly for me. Okay. So so how did we create that smart object? All right. Well, let's undo all this work right here. Now, there's several ways we can undo this thing, you know. So if I go right here and just drag that entire collection of layers down here to the trash can, I can just drop it and the whole thing's gone, right? So I can do that if I want to. Now, watch this. I'm going to do that Command Control Z again and bring it back, right? Okay. I want you to see another tool right up here at the top of my area. And if yours isn't showing, you can go right here to Window, and you can come down here to where it says History and click History, and it'll show right there. Okay. So I've got these little icons right here, and and when I hover over it, even tells me what its name is. I'm going to click History. Now, let me expand this down a little bit. Look at this, y'all. What are we looking at here? We're looking at all the steps I just did to get this image to this point. Okay. Now, I could maybe go in here and say, you know what? I didn't really care about all these brush strokes right here. They just didn't do what I wanted to do. But I did like what happened when I did the hue and saturation thing. Okay. So what I can do is come right here in the history and click on the hue and saturation, and it's going to take me back to what the picture looked like at that point in time. Okay. Now you may say, well, Steve, what if you look at that and you go, well, I really don't like that. I like what I had before. Fine. Go all the way down to where you started and go to the last input right there. Now I didn't go to the delete one, because that's where I deleted that layer. Um, but I could, I could go to the delete and notice it just trashed it. It went away. It's not there anymore. Okay. So at any time, we can go back in history. Now, here's something really interesting about the history panel. If you look down here in the bottom right-hand corner of this history panel, that comes down like this, notice there's a little camera right there. Okay. Now, um, it doesn't look like an iPhone because originally cameras were meant to be a device you hold in your hand. Just teasing. So if I click that camera, it's going to take a snapshot of where I am right now. And you say, well, where'd it go, Steve? Well, if I scroll all the way up to the top, look at this. There's the snapshot right there. See it up there at the top? Now watch this. I can go back to where I started, or I can click on the snapshot and go to that point in time. Okay. That's so handy right there, y'all, to be able to go through the history palette and look and see what all the different changes were that were taking place while I was working on this image. Okay. So I want you to know about the history palette. Really, really important. And it'll help you a lot. Now, I want you to notice something else. Look over on the far right-hand side of that smart object layer. Okay. Notice there is an arrow right there. It's real tiny. It's probably kind of hard to see, but there's an arrow right there. If I click on that little arrow, it closes up that entire group. Okay. Remember last week we took a whole bunch of layers and we closed them we grouped them, right? Okay. Well, look right here. I just closed it down. All those adjustments are still there. Okay. They're right underneath there. In fact, there's that little arrow again, right? If I click that little arrow again, it opens up the group and allows me to see it. But after I've made those adjustments and things like that, I might say, well, you know what? I don't need to see all those adjustments anymore right now. So I'm just going to close it up. So I can go here and close it up and I'm in good shape. Now, when we're working on layers inside of an image, directly above that layer, you're going to see an area called opacity, right? We talked about this just a little bit last week. If I drop this down and I slide this slider to the right, watch the picture, watch what's happening. Look at here, y'all. It gradually reduces the opacity of that adjustment. So see, there's where we are. That's where we made the adjustment and everything was set up for us and made it dark and that kind of thing. But if we chose that layer and then we said, you know what? I don't want, that's a little strong. I want it to be a little less intense. So maybe I pull it back to 50%. And look at that. It dropped the opacity by 50% and pulled back part of that image, right? Now, isn't that cool that we can select the layer and then we can choose the opacity? Now I'm going to bring it back to 100%. I want you to see something else. Remember we talked just for a minute last week about this area right here where it says normal, right? And we dropped it down and we said this top section up here has to do with darkening the image, right? And the second section was lightening the image and bringing out the highlights and things like that. Third section was about contrast and how contrasty the image was going to be, okay? Now, and each time I hover over one of these adjustments, it gives me a look. It gives me a glimpse, if you will, of what that particular adjustment would look like. Okay, there's lighten, there's screen. Remember screen last week? We looked at that a little bit, I believe. And screen tries to remove black from the image. And that's what it's doing here. See, the black's kind of being reduced way down. Okay. So that's just one way we can go in here and get different looks, if we will, for the picture. All right. Now, let's get rid of all this stuff right here. So I'm going to go back to history and I'm going to go back to where I started. All right. Now, So we looked at smart layers. Now let's look at a different way that we can do adjustments on this particular image. In fact, wait a minute. I want to go back. Hold on. Let's go open history again and go back to my snapshot. There we go. So we bring them back. See how useful history is? So if I go right here now, I want to make some adjustments to this image, but I want to use adjustment layers, okay, instead of smart object. All right. So here's what I'm going to do. I've still got that layer selected. I'm going to go over here to the right-hand side, and I notice I see properties, adjustments, and libraries. Okay. I want to choose adjustments. All right. Now, when I choose adjustments here, let me drop this way down so you can see a little bit better. Remember I told you it was a lot like Instagram in that you have these little filters that you can choose. Like, for instance, what's this? I can go here and choose this one or this one. Notice it's just making immediate changes to the picture, right? Okay. There's even a few more down here. There's not a whole lot, but there's a few more. So if I go right in here like this, I notice those are portrait ones. But this is a landscape, isn't it? So if I chose the landscape one, now it's filters that relate more to landscapes than it does to portraits. Okay. I mean, you can use a portrait filter on a landscape, it doesn't matter, but I just wanted you to see. So there's lots of different kinds of filters here that we can apply. Okay. Now, let's go down here to the black and white one. Now look right here. This will give us different kinds of black and white settings. Okay, there's a blue tint one. That's kind of nice. We can go right here and choose all kinds of black and white settings. All right, so I'm going to go with this middle one right here. Okay, just for the fun of it, the neutral black and white. So I'm going to click that. Now look what just happened. When I clicked on that filter, it automatically created another layer set. It didn't add to the smart object, right? Okay. It didn't add to the smart object. It added an adjustment layer. Now, why did it do that? Well, you know that when we're down here in this smart object area, the reason we did a smart object is so we could go back and adjust the hue and saturation, or we could go back and adjust the brightness, right? That kind of thing. Okay. But what we did here is that when you do an adjustment layer, it's going to choose a layer that you can just make adjustments on right here. Okay. So if I turn this off and turn it back on, it's gonna show me what's below this layer right here. And I can close that layer up by hitting the little triangle. Okay. Now, just like we did before, maybe we want to do another adjustment on this. So let's go over here to adjustments, and we'll go back to where it says back to view all. And look at all this down here. Lots of adjustments. And we'll have to have a whole class one day, y'all, on what all these adjustments do. And maybe I'll add that in at the end. Maybe we'll add an extra class at the end. I don't know. So here's what I want to do. I'm going to go to curves. Okay. Now, when I do curves, notice that because this is an adjustment layer, it adds the curves. There's the black and white selection. So if I turn that off, it takes the black and white away, right? Okay. But when you do an adjustment layer, it's going to stack all these adjustment layers. That's pretty cool. So if I choose this curves layer, let's say I want it to be more contrasty. So this mark right here at the very bottom left, those are your dark tones. And this area up here, that little bitty box, are your bright tones. Okay. For instance, here, let's grab this little one up here and watch what happens when I pull it down. Okay. Do you see the brightness going away? Okay. It's taking the brightness out of the picture. Okay. Now, if I grab this one right here, I can move it up and get a real hazy looking picture. Maybe I want it to look foggy on the picture or something like that. I don't know. You can do all kind of fun things here. Okay. So I'm able to make adjustments right here on this particular area. So let's do this. Let's drag this where the blacks are really, really dark. Okay. I'm going to pull that over. Now, watch this. I don't want everything to be affected by this. So if I turn the eyeball on and off, notice how it takes it away and shows. Watch this. I think that I'm going to turn it off. I don't want this up here to be so dark. Okay. I don't mind this being dark because that's near the ground and the light's coming from behind. So watch this. There we go again with layer mask. This mask right here is related to that adjustment that we just did. All right. So if I click on that mask, go over here and get my brush, right? You know the routine. Mask is white, so I'm going to paint with black. And I'm going to go right here and I'm just going to bring this area back. Now notice, remember I told you it remembers everything. Remember the flow up here? I'll bring the flow back to 100%. Okay. I'm going to go here and I'm going to bring back some of that adjustment that we made up here on this top part of the boat. You see it coming back slowly but surely. That top edge is coming back. I'm painting it back in. Okay. So look at that, y'all. Now we're able to go down here. Maybe we'll make one little pass down there. I don't know. We'll see. Okay. So notice the layer now. We've painted out that adjustment. Now we left the adjustment that was down here, right? Okay. So if I turn that on and off now, I can see how that bottom area stayed nice and dark and rich, but I brought the boat back. So I've got some detail in the image. All right. You see that happening? Okay. Lots of fun things we can do here in this particular area. Okay. So I wanted you to see some of these different things right here. Now let's go to a different image. We've kind of beat that one up a little bit. All right. You can tell I like boats. All right. So we go here, I want to make another adjustment, okay? Now notice I've already added one layer right here. If I turned it on and off, you can see that I've got one picture stacked on top of another, okay? No problem, okay? Just wanted you to see that. So if I want to make an adjustment to this layer right here, okay? I want to adjust the blues in this picture. I want the blues to be a lot more vibrant and really jump out at me. So if I go right over here and I go to adjustments, okay, I'm not going to do a smart object. I'm just going to do an adjustment here. And I think what I'm going to do here, let's see, let's go to color balance right here, okay? And choose that. Look at here. We've got the adjustment now. We've got the mask it gave us. There's the adjustment. It's a little scale thing, right? It's color balance, all right? But look over here. When I chose color balance, it opened up this little window over here on the right-hand side, all right? So I wanted more blue in the image. So if I go right here and I pull this toward the blue, look how, I mean, I can make it really, really blue if I want to, okay? But we can adjust the blue a little bit, all right? Maybe we want to bring some cyan into the picture. I don't know. Look at that. That's pretty cool looking, isn't it? Okay. Now, we make that adjustment. We can turn it on and off by clicking the eyeball, right? And we click it. There it is before. There it is after. Before and after. Look at that. I mean, that's really nice, but we're not stuck there. Maybe we look at it and we go, I kind of like the tones in that image and things like that, but it's a little bit too much blue. Okay. Well, I can go right here where it says opacity, right? Oh, and another little pro tip. Notice we can drop that little arrow down and then do the slider back and forth, right? But watch this. If I hover my cursor over the word opacity, do you see how it changes to a finger with arrows pointing out both sides? I can just click on that and drag it this way and drag it that way. You see what it's doing? You see the numbers changing? Okay. So I'm able to go in there and just adjust to the amount or the opacity I want of that particular adjustment. So there's before, there's after. So I gave it just a little bit of adjustment, right? Okay, so it allows us to go in there. We add these adjustment layers and we can do all kind of fun things to the picture. All right, let's go to one other picture. I'm just about through here because we got about 11, 12 more minutes. All right. So here we go. So here's just an old desert picture. And if I went up here to the top, you'll see I've added a cloud area in there. Just use that little sky replacement thing, you know, that we've talked about a couple times. And I went in there and just said, replace the sky. And I chose a sky that I had. Okay, plugged it in. All right, now, let's just say now we want to do some adjustments to this particular image. All right. But I don't want to change any of this. I really like the way this is looking right now, but I want to do some overall adjustments to this image. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to select the top layer. Okay. Now here's a huge shortcut for you. I want to combine all the layers that are visible on the picture into one picture. Here's how we do it. We hold down the Shift key, we hold down the alternate key, and we hold down the Command or Control key. Yep, all three of them, okay? Those are our three modifier keys: Shift, alternate, and Command, okay? While we're holding those three keys down, we're going to touch the letter E. E is in echo. One time. Touch it. Notice what just happened over here on the layer palette. Do you see it? I've now got a copy of all those layers that were available to me down here. It combined them. Now, why in the world would I want to do that? Well, maybe I want to do some adjustments to this layer. But yet I want to have a layer mask and be able to paint back some of the original image. I don't know. We'll see. Okay. So let's go in here like this. I'm going to go here and let's do this. Let's go over here. Let's make it a smart object. Okay. We hadn't done that in a minute. So we're going to right click on the thumbnail. Okay. Whoops. Nope. Right click in the gray area. And we're going to come down here to where it says create a smart object. There it is right there. Convert to smart object, not create. I'm wrong. Okay. We'll click there. Notice there's our little bitty icon. We've got our smart object now. Now we're ready to apply some filters. Okay. Now remember, we can apply filters to these smart objects, but we cannot apply adjustment layers, right? Because here's the difference. Adjustment layers create their own layer and allow you to work on those layers, right? Whereas smart filters, they create those little filters right directly below the smart filter that allows you to readjust. Okay. So it's giving you a lot more power, but I just wanted you to remember that adjustment layers stand on their own. Smart layers works a different way. So let's go up here to filter. And let's come down to some of these filters. So we've got filter galleries, we've got wide angle, we've got camera raw. I mean, we got all kinds of filter. Let's do this. Let's go on here and let's choose, let's do something really funky. Let's do stylize and let's do oil painting. That'll be really weird. Okay, so I'm going to click oil painting. When I do, it's going to open a window. Now notice how it's looking like an oil painting. Okay, it's kind of nice. Okay, and notice over here, it hasn't created that layer yet because we haven't clicked OK, right? Okay, we have to click the OK button before those layers. So what it does, it gives us a little bit of opportunity to make adjustments. So let's bring the stylization way over. Okay, I don't know. I'm just playing here. Maybe the cleanness will come over here like this. That makes it look more scratchy and stuff like that. Okay. We can do all kind of stuff. We can play in here all we want to. We can even change the direction of the light. Okay. Really fun. But I'm going to go ahead for right now and I'm going to say, okay, when I do, there is that oil paint layer, right? That we just created. All right. Now, what if I wanted to make some changes to that oil paint layer? Well, I can just double click it, right? And it comes right back just like it did a minute ago. Okay. Maybe we'll pull the stylization down a little bit where it's not quite so funky looking. Okay. That looks pretty good. All right. So we're going to do that. Click OK. And it applies that particular filter, right? Now, remember this layer, this mask right here, it will allow us, if we paint on that mask, we can paint through the stylization or the stuff that looks like an oil painting, and we can bring back what was there before. So let's try that. Let's click on that layer right there. We get our paintbrush. We're going to paint in black. I'm going to leave the properties, the opacity and the flow at 100, just because we're just playing here, right? And I'm going to paint over this. But look at what it's doing, y'all. It's a weird looking painting, right? It's just kind of pulling things out. Well, hold on. I go right here. I'm going to drop the brush down. I had it too big. Yeah. I'm going to go right here and I'm going to paint down and I'm going to bring back what that rock looked like before we started working on it. See it now? It's starting to come back. It's taking away that stylization that was on there, if you will. Let's take a couple more off just so you can see them. Okay. See it coming back real it's bringing back the structure of the rock, that was in here. Let's do all the rocks. Why not? We're painting here. We're having fun. All right, so we're gonna bring all these back here. There's one there, and I'm just gonna do this real quick. You might spend a lot more time doing this, but notice what's happening here, y'all. It's keeping the stylization down on the canyon floor, if you will. Okay, but on all the mountains, it's taking it away, right? Okay, you see that right there? And look at there. If you look at the mask, you see that it's kind of the shape of those mountains that were available to us right there. Okay, so that's really nice to be able to do that. Now we can turn that oil paint on and off, okay, to see what it looked like before and after, to see if we liked it. Okay. Now, if we decide we don't like that oil painting thing, we can just drag it down here to the trash can, dump it, and we get rid of it. But our mask stays with us. Isn't that interesting? Okay. So we've got the smart layer here, and we could go in here and add another filter to it. All right. Now, here's something I'd like to do. I think I'd like to go in here and I'd like to go to filter. I'm gonna do one more thing for us, and we're gonna cover all these filters, so don't fear. Okay, and I'm gonna go up here to blur. And let's see here. That's not the one I wanted. Blur right up here. And I'm gonna choose Gaussian blur. Now don't get freaked out, okay? All right, so what had happened here, it's the last time I applied blur, it was really heavy. But if I drop the little slider back right here, notice now, okay, we get this, we can adjust how much blur is in the picture. Okay, that's pretty good. That's kind of helpful. All right. So if we wanted to create a depth of field look, where something in the foreground is in focus and the further you get away, the more out of focus it becomes. Yeah, that might be kind of nice. Let's try that. Let's go here like that. And then we'll choose OK. Now notice what happens. Because it's a smart object, right? It put it right over here. All right. Now, I want to bring back this rock right here. Now I could go right here and just get the paintbrush and paint the rock back, right? I want to show you one of the little trick. If we go right over here to the left-hand side where all the toolbars are, right? I'm going to choose this elliptical right here. Okay, just right there. Remember I told you if you click and hold, it's going to pop out more tools right there for you. I'll choose the elliptical. I'm going to come right down here and I'm going to left click and drag. Now notice there is a circle or an elliptical forming, but it's not over the rock where I want it to do. Okay, little pro tip. If you keep holding down the mouse button and you hold the shift key down at the same time, it allows you to reposition that particular selection. Keep holding that mouse button though, okay? It allows you to reposition that selection. Once it's repositioned, then I can drag it out some more if I want to and reposition it some more, okay? So I kind of want that part to come back. So now I'm going to release the space bar and release the mouse. And now I got this selection right around this little area right here. Okay. Don't worry about this bar down here at the bottom. We're going to talk about generative fill later. All right. So right here, I want to fill that with black, right? Because we got a white mask. And if I fill it with black, it's going to cut through it. And let's see. So I'm just going to go here, right the section. I'm going to right click and I'm going to choose fill. Okay. I go in the middle of the selection, right click, choose fill. And I do that. This comes up. It says, okay, what do you want to fill it with? Well, there's a lot of things I can fill it with, but right now I just want to use a color. Okay. And it says, okay, what color would you like to use? Well, I could come right here. Let's see, cancel out of there. I could come right here and choose one of these blending modes, but I'm just going to leave it at normal right now. And I'm going to choose color again. So the color wheel opens and I just want black right down there at the bottom left-hand corner. Okay. And I'll choose okay. And then I'll choose okay again. Now look what just happened. There's that little oval we made. And look how that is now standing out, right? Okay. And the rest of it is out of focus. Now, it's a great way in your images that you create. It's a great way to draw attention to something because when we look at photographs, the first thing we notice is the brightest spot in the picture. And the second thing we notice is what's in focus. It's just the way our crazy brains work. Okay. So in this one, that draws your attention right there to that point. So if you ever want to force your viewer to look at a particular area, that's how to do it. Okay. All right. So we've got that set up right there and it's looking really, really good. And I want to deselect that. Remember Command D, and I deselect it. And now that rock is in focus, but the rest of it is out of focus. Okay. So these are a lot of different filters that we can use in here. Okay. So what I want you to do for next week, I want you to take, open a couple of two or three images that you like and try applying some adjustment layers, try applying image adjustment layers, the one-time deals, and also go over here and turn and duplicate your layer and turn it into a smart object and experiment with that a little bit using filters. All right. I hope this has been helpful to you today. I hope it's inspired you to jump out there and do some more things in there. I will stick around for a little bit